Hey, I'm Bill. Welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to go up to a field full of international trucks to take another look at a Scout 800 that I am considering buying. But first we're going to work on the truck here. I'm going to be fighting the fuel pumps, the mechanical fuel pumps, which I've been fighting for about the past month or so. So let's get right into it. My apologies, the sound is going to suck because it's super windy out here right now, but you can see this is my crazy new ghetto fuel setup. I cannot get these stupid fuel pumps to work, either one of them, and I just want to drive the goddamn thing. So I bought this super cheap fuel regulator. It's a pressure regulator. So now fuel's coming in through the pump into the filter, so I can see that it's coming in into the regulator and then into the carburetor. I'm going to fire this thing up and see how we do, see if I can get it to work, and see if the idle is still nice and smooth. I've got it right now set at 1 psi. Theoretically, this is only supposed to be like a 5 to 8 psi pump, but we ascertained that it was putting way too much fuel into the bowl, so I've got this thing dialed way down. Let's do 2. Oh, we're leaking. Hang on. To be very clear, this is not how I want this thing to be. I want for this whole setup to run off of the fuel pump down on the motor, but I just can't seem to figure out what is going on with that thing right now. All right, here goes the second try. Looking better. Put it behind the regulator just to see what's going on with this thing now. See how much it looks like. Alright. We are somewhere right around, looks like 700 RPM, maybe 750, which is about as good as we can get here. Still getting a little bit of oil smoke out of the exhaust. Not entirely sure why that is, but this is worlds better than where we were before. So I'm going to shut it down, move the Scout around, and take her out for a spin. This is much, much better. The idle is much better. She feels better now. A little snakier now. I got to figure out what's going on with the exhaust, but I like the way this feels better. It's noisy in the back because the rear wood is not bolted down. I'm going to take the rear springs out of this thing in a couple of weeks, but for right now, I'm really happy with the way this thing is driving. This is much, much better. It's looking like I am going to have to get a new speedometer though, because this one is still bouncing up and down. Maybe I'll do that next year. Super happy with this now though. It's running at a much smoother RPM. It's not trying to gallop away, which is great. I just tooled around the neighborhood for a bit, trying to get some miles on it, because I'm trying to test out the brakes to see if I bled the brakes properly. Just popped out and the wheels feel fine. I don't feel any heat on them at all, and I've been on the brakes and off the brakes this whole time. I'm hoping that second lead did the job, in which case I think we are pretty clear for more long-range trips, which is good. So far I've had her out for the 1 mile trip. I've done the 3 mile trip, and now I'm going to do this is going to be like a 5 or maybe a 10 mile trip. Just run down to the next town over and get my hair cut. She's running really well. I don't see any issues right now. I'm still getting used to the idea of the manual choke. I've got a automatic choke on the Scout, and I've just been spoiled with that thing, so I've got to get used to this thing. I had it when I was testing it out earlier today with the new fuel pump, or the electric fuel pump. The choke is already all the way open, so the idle was high, and I was ready to go in there and start messing with the settings again. And then I had forgotten that the mechanical choke on this thing also controls idle speed. So once I opened that up, the idle came right back down. It's at a normal speed, so that's all good. One of the purposes of this trip is to get all the way to where I'm going and then hop out and feel the front wheels. It was like a week or two ago, I had gone to pick up my daughter at school. I was on one side of town, I had to go to the other side of town to pick her up. And I was coming out of the school, and the truck was working really hard, and I realized the brakes had frozen up again. So we got back home, I've let them out again. I'm really hoping that fixed things. This is going to be one of those trips. We'll see just how well we did. And other than that, I'm listening for any other things that I've got to address here. Got the Travelall out on the highway for the first time. I'm doing about 60, and that's about as fast as I'm going to push this thing based on the axles and everything else. It's running good, doesn't seem to be hot, oil pressure's good, so that's all fine. It's just that this is not going to be a speed demon until I change out that rear axle. But still, I'm pretty happy with this. This is nice. Loud as hell. I'm going to put my headphones back in because this thing needs some serious noise insulation. I am definitely going to need to replace the used speedometer here. So I've driven both trucks on the same day. I took the Travelall on like a 30-mile drive, and I'm about 15 miles into a trip in the Scout to look at another Scout. It's weird. The shift pattern is almost the same. First gear is almost the same, but it's so much different how buttery smooth the clutch is in the Scout. A T19 versus a T18. I've been driving T19s for almost 30 years. They just feel buttery smooth to me. A little bit more work to get the truck into gear in a T18. The steering in the Scout is so much looser than the steering in the Travelall, which is a weird thing to say, but it makes sense because the Travelall basically it's manual steering, so it's basically the steering wheel is connected directly to the gear in the box. So there's no play in that thing at all. And I got in this thing and I was surprised at how sloppy it was. I shouldn't say surprised. It reminded me how sloppy the steering in this thing is. It's funny that I can drive the Scout faster than the Travelall. That's because this has highway gears in it, whereas the Travelall does not. My max speed in the Travelall, I think, is 60 miles an hour. This I've done up to 75, and that's when it starts to get a little squirrely when you hit, expansion joints and big bumps and things like that. I will say this: I absolutely love driving this truck. Like I said before, I've had Scouts for almost 30 years. I just love driving this truck. This truck just makes me so happy. I don't know why. It's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of, it's old, it smells. I have my hands on just about every nut and bolt in this truck at this point. I've done a ton of work to get it to where I like it. It's still, not 100%. I would clearly many things I would love to do to it, but I just love this truck. All right, so here I am up at Dan's place looking at this tan Scout that I am seriously considering making an offer on.
Regular viewers of the channel may remember this truck from July when Bennett and I went up into the woods and braved the deer ticks to take a look at it and a bunch of other trucks that he was considering making an offer on. This is what it looked like. This is an 800. As you can see, it's in interesting shape. It's definitely going to need body work down here, but the inside floors actually, I mean, they're all still there, which is kind of shocking. That's rusted out, so that can be fixed. I wouldn't worry too much about that. The rest of these floors don't look like they're in bad shape. I mean, this whole thing would probably have to get cut out now that I'm looking at it, but you know, this is all flat steel, which is super easy to do. Some rust on the inside here. That firewall there doesn't look too bad. That whole rocker is shot. That fender is actually not in bad shape. The hood is not in bad shape, and the nose is in nice shape. It's got a nice beefy bumper on it. Windshield is, I guess, okay. The interior is what it is. It's been sitting out. This is basically the way that we found it, except that it was under about, I don't know, the entire back half was covered in weeds. So that is what it is too. The floors, I was actually kind of shocked to see, are not in bad shape. I mean, they're here. They're not, you know, clearly they're not perfect, but they're here, which is better than I can say for most scouts I've seen in this area. So this, I mean, the driver's isn't too bad. That could be cleaned out. Pressure wash that out and cleaned up. I have no idea if those keys work. What does the odometer say? 47,462. You know, all the stuff that would have melted in the sun is gone. You know, the pad up here is gone. These are some weird aftermarket racing bucket seats. This one came with a bulkhead, and there's actually a half cab over by the garage over there that I would want to buy with this thing, just to get it covered. I'll get into the back of the bed in a minute. Let me walk around the side here. This rocker, as you can see, is completely filled with mud, so that is pretty much junk. I'd have to figure out what to do with that, find some metal or some way of redoing that, and I would venture a guess that those rockers there are completely covered or filled with mud too. Behind this is the fuel tank, and I'm sure the fuel tanks are completely shot, but just throw it on a boat tank and call it good. It's got 4 wheels, although, you know, God knows if they actually hold any air. I'm gonna bet that that one doesn't, but I've got a couple of spare wheels in my stash that I could throw on this just to get it to move around the driveway, which would not be too bad. So this is not a deal breaker. I can bring those out. Underside,
I found this on the web.
Underside doesn't look too bad. It's full of mud daubers, and it looks like it's mostly surface rust all throughout. Let me go around to this side. This wheel looks like it's holding there. Over here, the same is true. I don't see any really bad rust. The support here is, you know, going bad. That's pretty standard. And you can see here in this corner, that's bad rust. But the nice thing about the sheet metal on the floors of these things is that it's all straight steel. So this would be easy to cut out and replace. Probably have to do the same with the floor there. These rockers are in the same shape, which is to say there's no rocker there. And that rear section, that's probably full of mud as well. So this whole thing would have to be cleaned out. Looks like we're on 2 bad tires. I know I've got 2 tires that'll fit this thing. let's see. That hinge is there. This hinge is gone. Might even need a whole new dash. We'd have to see. And the defrost panel is pretty well shot. It does have a back seat, which is a plus. The seat is completely trashed, but I know a guy who can make me some upholstery, so that's not a huge deal. The fact that the frame is here is nice. What else? These tops all look pretty good. Let's see what the rear quarters look like under here. This has a little bit of rust down here. Somebody sealed up the access to the tank there, so that's looks like it's in decent shape. And it actually still has the outrigger on the back, which is shocking. It's on some sort of crazy lift. You can see there, that's like a, I don't know, that's like a backwoods kind of scary lift. See what the other side looks like here. Yeah. Same over here. That was the jacket up, so we might have to do something about that. We'll have to see. Rear quarters don't look too bad. This is an aftermarket bumper that somebody put on. It's pretty big and beefy. Although I guess maybe that is factory. That's a beefy factory bumper. Yeah, that's pretty solid. That doesn't look like somebody just cobbled it together, which is a nice sign. Can't unlatch the rear, so I can't see if that works. It's got a really nice spare tire on the back, or spare tire carrier, I should say. I'm gonna climb up inside and we're gonna see what the rear bed looks like, see how bad that is. And then we'll get around to the front and we'll look inside under the engine, or into the engine bay, and see what we got going on there. So give me a second. There's a very good chance the floor on this thing is going to be in much worse shape than the front, because there's more garbage here. So I'm going to have to see what's underneath here. I just want to make a careful consideration. I mean, a floor wouldn't be a hard thing to cut out, but I just want to know what I'm getting into. Okay, so this seam over here is bad. The back actually isn't too bad. My guess is that all the water drained that way and sat against the bulkhead, so my guess is that whatever is under the seat is going to be in terrible shape. All right. That side isn't too bad. Oh, all right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so there's definitely some rot up here toward the front in a bunch of different places. It's just sort of going through, which again is not, I'm not shocked by, but I'm also not that scared of either. I think that putting a floor in this thing would be, while I'm not a, a 5-minute project would not be a huge deal based on all the woodwork or the metalwork that I've done so far. Yeah, this little thing. Right, so the wood was rotting and just sitting on this metal, and it's just been eating away at this. So another year and this whole thing probably would have been gone. But we can work with this. And again, having this here is super helpful. So, all right. That's all good to know. Throw this. Down there. Yeah. Oh, look at that, scout connection. Yellow. It doesn't work, but that's fine. I have like 4 of those switches in my spares. And I've got about 10 of those gauges now. Based on what I got from the Travelall, all this stuff is pretty well frozen. Okay. Let's get under the hood and see what we've got under there. So the last time I was out here, I actually peeked at this, and I mean it's all here. It's all intact. Everything is here. The heater stuff is here. The plenums are all here. This was running when Dan parked it, as with most of the other trucks that were here. So I know that it's complete. I just don't know. I want to see if it spins. And if it spins, that means I can get it running. Let me find, where is my crank? There it is, down there. The next thing I'm going to have to do after I look at this is go find the doors and haul them back. But that's in a couple of minutes. That's not right now. So the crank is going to be, let me see if I can just get it spinning with the fan. That would be a no. Fan is not moving. Let's see if I can get a crank on it. It's not the end of the world. It just makes life easier, that's all. Maybe I can feed it down the other way. Not a whole lot of room to move down here, for sure. All these weeds and stuff. All right. There we go. I brought him last time, thinking I was Mr. Smarty Pants. It's that kind of situation where like everything is in the way. All right, so it's moving one way. I mean, it moves a little bit. That doesn't say anything, but let's see if I can get it to spin between this thing here It moves just the smallest bit. So my guess is that this thing would need a crap ton of ATF and PB Blaster to get it to free up, but that wouldn't be the first time I've worked with a locked up engine. Let's look in the oil bath and see if there's any yuck in here. Look at that wee little holly. And it is frozen. I can't get anything to move, which again is not that surprising. Yeah, this whole thing basically needs to be shot with stuff and freed up. Everything is frozen solid, but for sitting out in the field for 10 years, I can't say I'm surprised. That coil has seen better days. Let's see what the cap looks like. Oh, doesn't look too bad. It's at least not open to the elements, and it's got that little dust cover on it, which is nice. All right, that could be fun to play with. Try to get this thing back on in the right place. All right, that should be good enough for now. Having torn Brian's entire 800 apart from the inside out, all of this stuff looks very familiar to me now, which is kind of cool. There's not a ton of stuff in here that really surprises me. I mean, it's all here. It's just not in great shape. I'm sure all these controls are frozen. Alternators there. Doesn't look like anybody's been chewing on the wires, which is nice. I don't see any obvious chew marks on these bundles, which is a good sign. I definitely do a whole lot of continuity tests before I even got to fooling around with this thing, but let's see. What else are we looking for here? Starters down there, got a couple of those. So it's a one-pot brake, just like the Travelall, and this is completely frozen solid. So it's a single cylinder. Mechanical clutch, which is nice. I don't have to worry about a slave like I did in the Travelall. All right. You know, it's not going to win any beauty contests, but it's all here, and it's better than many of the other Scouts I've seen in this area. Let's go bushwalking and see if we can find the. We're going to see if we can find two things. We're going to see if we can find the doors for this truck, and we're going to see if we can find a wheel that fits this hubcap. You can definitely see Brendan sure had a time getting these things out of here. This area back here is rough. He had to grind this stuff out of here. This could not have been easy. These are all the dregs back here. I think he's going to get a couple more things, but there's a bunch of other Scouts and stuff like that back here that are just too far gone. Scout 2s. There's a Traveller and it was an early 810 right there, but that's no good. There's another Scout 80 over there, but this stuff is all just in really rough shape. My doors are right here, so I'm going to grab these. Grab these and throw them in the truck. Kids, don't let them fool you. Scout doors are not light. Funny, I didn't even look at the door itself, but not in bad shape. Wow. The underside's in really good shape. It's full of dirt, but that'll get cleaned out later. Yeah, this is all savable. Cool. Whew. I can't imagine how much cutting and hacking they had to do to get these trucks out of here. This is actually easier to carry because it's got this helpful handle, but it's still not light. And I am going to have to do a major tick check when I get home. Whew. All right. There's truck number 2. I think Brendan might be taking this too. This one looks pretty well picked over and gone, and it would be a challenge to even get in there. I mean, he'd have to clean it all out, but I don't know that I'm interested in a project that big. Okay. So that would fit. But is this a 16-inch rim? And is it any good? Because it's in pretty rough shape. That actually says 17 and a half, which is bigger than what I would need. And that's a skinny. And that's got the old International rim on it, which is not what I would need. Yeah. So these would not work for me. These are too big. It's funny, I haven't seen this since it got yanked out of here. Woof. One time that was a really pretty truck. Green. All right, here are all the other trucks that Brendan is buying. I'm going to check these and just see if there's a spare that might work. I can already tell this is too big, way too big. Those are too big because they're four-wheel drive. I have a sneaking suspicion all of these are going to be too big because this is the same year as the other one that's back there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of these are too big. Go over here and test this one. All right, that's a 16-inch rim. That would work, and this is the right... No, it's not. This is the kind of rim that I have on my truck. This inner section is too big. That's really interesting. So this takes the wider hubcap. Let's see if these back ones... Yeah, see, the back one would work. Because that rim is in terrible shape. That's a 16, so this would work. Let's see what size this is. I think this is a 17. Yeah, that's a 17. So this wouldn't work. So that pickup is the only one so far. That's a 17. That's a 16. So that wheel would work. And that would be exactly the right size. I wonder if both of these rear wheels are mismatched, because this looks too big. No, that's a 17 as well, or a 16 as well. So these two rear wheels would work. That's a 16. And that would work. That's 4.5. 6-inch. Okay. So this is the blue truck, and you can see here, this is in very rough shape. I would say this is in rougher shape than the tan truck. This is an 80, I believe, because it's got the earlier dash. It's got a roll bar, which is nice. It's got this bench seat, but it's just full of garbage. And this was actually even more full of crap than the other one was. So I'm going to pass on this one just by looking it over really quick again. Not as interested at all. That one doesn't even open from this side. There are wheels in there. Let's go look in the back. Nope, just tires. All the seats are in there though. That's pretty cool. Again, another nice old truck. This one was originally, looks like two-tone blue. Top was dark and the bottom was light. Really pretty. Pretty old trucks. All right, no wheels in there and nothing inside. Next thing is, let's get the engine cover back down. Let's get the doors inside. Okay, so back here is a whole pile of stuff. All right, this is for a Scout 2. Scout 2 bumper. That, is that for an 800? I can't tell. Sneak back over here if I can. Yeah, I believe that's an 800 cab top, in which case I could be convinced about that. Can't use that. That's a 16-inch rim. I wonder if that would work. Yep, that's wrong. Mine needs to be 4.5, not 5.5. So I can't use that. Okay. All right, old girl, this is where I leave you until I come back. We got the doors. Let's see if we can secure a top. And after Thanksgiving, I'll try to drag you out of here as quick as we can. The nice thing is we can get out the way that Brendan's getting out over there. So that's a good thing. We don't have to try to get past the Buick there. So we'll just have to bushwhack around those trucks. All right.
So I'm gonna go for it. The truck is rough. It needs a lot of work. But it's got some good bones and it's got some good parts. And for the price, I can't beat it. Even if I was to clean it up, put the doors back on it, and turn around, and I want to try to revive it. I want to try to use it as, a test bed for another electric project, if at all possible. It would be really fun to do something like that with a truck that isn't as pretty as Brian's truck. Have it be really nice on the underside and look like a Scout on the top side. Anyway, I'm not going to be here next week, so I'll make a plan to come and get it, sometime in early December, drag it out of the woods. I've got to figure out where I'm going to put it now. And I know if I put it in the driveway, that's not going to make my wife happy, but that's a problem for future build. There's really nothing out there that I want or need. The truck is it. So I'm just going to stick with that.
Block-off plate is now back on the engine. I'm just going to leave the mechanical fuel pumps off for the winter, and I'll put them back in the spring. I also tightened up all of the bolts around the pan because it seems to be leaking here. I'm going to use my rag and wipe it off tonight, and then see, come back out tomorrow and see if I can figure out where it's leaking from. But they were all relatively loose. I just tightened them all up good. I've tightened them up once before, so it's kind of surprising that they're loose again. But let's see if we can figure out in the next day or so where this thing leaks from, and try to come up with some way of fixing that, because I'd really like to stop this thing from peeing all over my driveway. That'd be nice. The following weekend, Brian and I helped Bennett get one of the doors off of his Hudson. Moments after this video was taken, it slipped into gear and smashed into one of the trailers in the background, bending one of the doors backwards. So we had to loosen the bolts to get the door off so he could replace it. There it goes.
Check that out. Alright, sweet cues. Ready, Bill? Yep. Yep. Bye-bye. Voila. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move all this stuff. Some cardboard. Sweet. Looks better already.
Yeah.
Hey. You just turned it into the Duke Desert car. Can you imagine trying to jump into that window?
No.
Yeah, got a little bit of a dent here, but the pillar doesn't look twisted at all.
No.
What?
Take the card off and see. I don't even know how they got these cards on.
No, me either. I'll worry about this glue.
Here's where we're standing with the new cup holders for the C-Series truck. Everything looks good. I just welded this thing up. I think that should be fine. That's all it needs. Put it in the truck. Feels great. I mean, the fact that this is 16 gauge steel means that I don't, like I said, I don't need this gusset in the middle, which is fine. That's just another piece of metal that doesn't need to be there. And it's more complexity, and I don't have this thing in the center. And like I said before, this section is narrower now. It's not as big and wide as that is. So that is all great. The thing that I cannot figure out is, one of the whole reasons that I did this was to widen these cup holders more so I could fit more stuff in there. This is a standard, you know, Yeti cooler, and it just barely fits in there. And when it's in the truck, it's clanking around. So I wanted to put some sort of rubber around each of the edges here to basically, you know, make it quiet. So I made these holes bigger in the pattern. But if you look at this, it's the same size. I know I made these bigger. So this is prototype B. I'm gonna have to go to prototype C to get this thing to work. Because that's just not big enough. I've got to make these another, probably, what would that be? Maybe another ½ inch wider, so that I can put rubber around this and, like I said, make this nice and quiet. So that's kind of a bummer. The other thing I'm going to do is I'll get rid of this slot because I don't need it anymore. I think I will continue with 16 gauge steel because, again, it is nice and beefy. Maybe I'll go to 18, but 18 might not be sturdy enough for this, because the thing I like about this is, I mean, it holds in place. And what I would have to do with this one is I had to put a piece of rubber on here so that when it bounced against the cover for the shift levers and stuff, it didn't make noise. If there's nothing there, that would be even better. And the thing with this is the bottom of this thing is flat, and there's about, you know, what's that, like a ½ inch between the bottom of this and where the bottom of the shift plate would be. So I wouldn't need to worry about that. This is not going to bend with 16 gauge steel. So I think I will do another with 16 gauge steel, make these bigger, and yeah, I'll have to redo this. That's still kind of a bummer though. I'm mad about that because I was really hoping that this would be the final piece, and then I could start maybe manufacturing a bunch of these, you know, without the hinge here, and sell some of these and make them into something good. I don't know. For what I paid for just the steel in this thing, I'd have to do like 10 of these to weld them up and make them cost effective to sell them. So anyway, we'll see. But that's number 2. So I'm going to hang this up and spray it with etching primer right now, and then probably call it a night. That's going to do it for this video. Again, thanks for watching. As always, I've got merch for sale. There is currently a Scout Christmas design up there. I think it's Merry Scoutmas. I'll put it up here. Threadless right now is having a sale. This is December 1st. Anything you buy there goes back into this truck. So I do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.